Hey everyone, today we're going to talk to Jill Brandenburg. I met her at a event a couple of weeks ago. Funny enough, we had common friends and a charity event I belong to. She comes there, which is the biggest charity cocktail event in the world. Not to brag, but yeah, I'll brag. Okay. Anyway, it's in Dallas. But Jill is an artist, speaker, author. There were a lot of things that I felt like this is awesome. I would like to have her on the podcast. So I invited her to the podcast. So Jill, kind of share what you used to do to what you do now. Obviously, you're an artist and, you know, info about what you do in art. And also, obviously, you're a speaker and the author, the book you wrote. Kind of, you can see
Oh,
in the background what you wrote about. But anyway.
absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. And it was absolutely great connecting with you. Sometimes you go to those events and you don't know if you're going to know anybody. And networking is hard, right? We can all agree. And so, but I will tell y'all this, he looked extremely dapper at the event that I was at, which is why I went over and had conversation and had something to talk about. But again, yeah, my name's Jill and I go by Speaker Jill. And there's a funny story in that to begin with. So my story is kind of representative of a lot of people's story. I went through breast cancer back in 2006, and but my journey was when I got diagnosed with breast cancer. I had been working as a graphic designer for decades. I was an artist at my core. But whenever you go through something that's like life altering or potentially life ending, you start to question everything you've done. And my biggest thing was that I really missed being an artist for me.
Mm.
And that was sort of how this whole journey of kind of of me finding myself started. I started painting again, I started doing art, and in that same time frame, I was going to Toastmasters.
Mm.
I love to speak. You'll see that as this progresses. And the things that I would talk about was my experience. I was I was a wedding planner, and I found out that I was sick 2 weeks after booking my first bride.
Mm.
So I continued to be a wedding planner for about 5 years.
Mm.
And so it's like kind of a lot of things just sort of began to fall into place. I spoke about my journey being a small business owner as a woman while being sick. I was actually going through a really bad relationship who just happened to be who I was working my business with at the time. So that is how the idea for me to write came to be. I
Mm.
started writing about all the crazy stuff that would happen at weddings. And then I had to realize that there was maybe a reason that I played a part in some of the crazy things that happened because I was sick, because I didn't want to tell anybody. And so that was really where my writing came to be. So what brought me to the path I'm on now is that I started recognizing that when I was speaking about, being a breast cancer survivor, being a survivor of domestic violence, being an artist and all of this, that when you're sick, people give you a pass. You can really own your emotions. You can be laughing 1 minute, crying the next, screaming at the universe. And I just started to understand that you shouldn't have to be, threatened with some, life altering, situation to be able to express yourself. And that's really sort of how my mindset, what we were talking about, that positivity is overrated, came to be. And the roller coaster that it is my life is is really what brought me to that belief that toxic positivity is it's killing us. It's making us try to, sustain something that isn't healthy and isn't something that's good for us. So that's my story, Lori, in a nutshell.
Awesome. Let's go. Let's get into that, right? Like when you say toxic positivity, define that and also give an example what that looks like to you so that way we can, you know, get into that more.
Of course. Well, have you ever heard or have somebody ever told you, look on the bright side? Like if you've just gotten fired, do you want somebody to really kind of come at you and go, well, you know, when one door closes, another one opens? That's what toxic positivity is. It is when you are trying to yourself or that somebody else is trying to push upon you, that relentless need to be positive, no matter what the circumstances. I didn't tell people that I was sick initially because I didn't want to hear you're strong, you can do it. That's not how I felt. And I didn't want to hear it. And I didn't recognize that that was toxic positivity when it was occurring, but it was those steps that made me understand it now. But yeah, if you are going through a breakup, you know, you don't want people to immediately the first thing, oh, you'll be okay. Just, just look up, be positive. And we don't think about it, but that kind of negates how someone else is feeling. If you tell them, they're like, oh man, I just lost my job. And they're like, oh, it'll be all right. Just keep your head up. That negates okay, I guess I can't be sad about losing my job. So that's kind of what toxic positivity is. A good example, here's my analogy for this. And I love roller coasters, clearly based on this. But if you're looking at a video, right? Let's say you're on TikTok, you're watching that video, two people are on a roller coaster. And one person in the seat, they're screaming, they got their hands up. They're probably just as scared or anxious as the person sitting next to them, but they're feeling their emotions. They're letting that fear out as a scream or a yell, but they're experiencing it. And then you've seen the videos of the person in the seat that is just stoic. They're terrified. But what's weird is like they're just staring. It's like they can't allow themselves to be scared or fear. That's kind of how toxic positivity feels. It's like you're just holding it all in, and it's not good for you.
Great. So now I got the definition. So, and that's a great point. So what I always, well, here's how I would put it, right? When people tell you not to accept your emotions, negative especially, that's where you're defining as that's toxic, because you're not letting people experience the sadness, whatever, as if sadness, you're not supposed to feel sad. You're not supposed to feel angry. And I agree with that 100%. So because one of the things I've learned is accept your emotions. They're neither good or bad. It's what it is, because there's no happiness without anger. I mean, sadness, there's no, joy without anger, so on and so forth. These are yin and yang. You got to experience those things. Yeah, it doesn't mean that you have to be down all the time or angry all the time, but if you don't reject it, block it, that definitely. And actually, that is a great way to put it, because that does cause toxic in the body. That's very those suppressed emotions. So that's a great point. Awesome. All right. So now that we get in, so what did you write the book about? Like, how did you go about writing the book? What gave you essentially the idea to write the book then?
Well, now what gave me the idea so there's two books. One's in the works and one is available.
Okay.
My memoir is, so what I would do after, and this was early when I was just sort of kind of deciding whether or not I wanted to continue being a wedding planner. But during the course of that time, every weekend I wasn't working, I'd go out with my friends and I'd be, oh my God, you wouldn't believe what happened at this wedding. And after a few weeks of me telling these crazy stories, which y'all can't even imagine, somebody said, you should write a book. Yeah, plenty of people out there have heard their life, they tell their story somewhere. They're like, oh, you should write a book about it. Well, that's what I decided to do. And during that process, like I said, I started to recognize what my life circumstances, what role that played in me trying to plan these weddings and make them happen and go off without a hitch, because of what I was experiencing in real life was not what I was portraying. And that was the book that kind of started my writing journey. And it's actually with an editor now. We're trying to tweak it and get it to where it will get published. Now, with that said, when I started really kind of deciding that I wanted to go out and start speaking on toxic positivity and share my journey and share what I've learned about it with the world, I decided a great precursor to that would be to write a book. And this is not an example one. This is literally like 10 tips to avoid toxic positivity in your life. 5 of the first half of the book, 5 of them are kind of like positivity myths. It has a description of it. It has some real talk from me, which is usually a story, like one of the ones I've told today. And then it gives you a prompt. And it gives you a page where you can literally write things about your experience with toxic positivity. And this is all an opportunity for you to start recognizing this in your life and trying to remove this from your life. One of the myths is fake it till you make it perspective, which I adhered to for a long time. I used to tell people, well, if you just keep believing, it's going to just happen. And that I am a positive person. I'm not anti-positivity. Please don't get that wrong, because I'm a very positive person. But I think you've got to take action. And I think that's where a lot of people have just thought that it is purely in the mind. And I think that plays a part of it, but that's not all of it. And then there's 5 literal kind of tips at the second part of the book. And that was the reason, because I really think that this is something that can help people make a difference in their lives.
Got you. That's a great point. So, law of attraction, manifestation, all that stuff. Great, but it doesn't mean just because you start imagining, believing things will happen, because there's a lot of science to it. Not to get into a rabbit hole there, but there is a lady, doctor, psychologist, scientist, neuroscientist, Dr. Tara Swart. She kind of went into this whole, thinking about manifestation and how really it works in the science, because brain reticular activating system sees what you want to see, right? And that's what it meant, not like it'll manufacture things out of thin air. Great point there. Yes, that is a great point. Yes, being positive is great, but if you don't do anything, you're not going to get anything. So
yeah, if you're just sitting on the couch and go, everything's going to be all right, everything's going to be all right, it's probably not going to be all right.
Yeah, just imagining. And I mean, same thing with, whatever the belief system is, right? I mean, you can pray and all, hopefully things will happen. But if you don't do anything, like there's a parable or something, right? This guy was asking God to rescue him, and he sent 4 boats, and then he's like still waiting. And then the God says, like, I sent you 4 boats, you didn't get on it. Like, I was waiting you to come, okay?
Yes, no, that is such a good, that's good. That's really good. One of the things that I am one of those people, this is a trial and error thing for me. I am not a doctor. I'm not a therapist, although my friends might disagree with you on the therapy part. But this is my personal experience. And I think sometimes having that perspective is something that people can relate to a little bit more. I went down the whole manifestation route. I've tried things over the years. I can point over there. Y'all can't see, but I can point over there. And there's self-help books. And I've read them, and they have impacted me, and they have made a difference. But my issue is that I think that we have become so dependent on not believing anything negative, that we've become so focused on not disrupting the status quo that we can't be honest and authentic.
Yeah, that's true. Another way to put it is not accepting the negative is the problem, right? When there is negative, it's nothing wrong with negative. I mean, you don't, like we talked about again, not to belabor the point, there's going to be good and bad and everything, yin and yang. If you don't have one, you don't have the other. That's the duality of life, right? If you don't live, you can't die. If you don't die, some another person won't live. So anyway, you can't have forever live, right? Then there's no fun. Or what's there to look forward to if you're living forever? Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
On your speaker circuit, right? Speaking circuit, right? Normally, well, who is the audience you focus on, and where do you like, who should reach out to you, I guess?
Goodness. Well, of course, my main topics, and really I've got, like a main speech,
Mhm.
and that it really incorporates, of
Mhm.
course, that positivity is overrated and the way that I've come to believe that mindset. So it interwoven are the stories of me, going through my cancer journey and dealing with this domestic violence situation at the same time, um, and then trying to own my business and navigating the challenges that came with all of that. And I think that coming through that, I have a perspective that a lot of women tend to resonate with in audiences. That's where I kind of have a lot of connection. But the more that I have learned about toxic positivity and how it permeates every little facet of our lives, I am open now really to speaking to businesses, to men, because for a long time, men have been like, boy, big boys don't cry kind of thing. It's that same mentalities that y'all have been pushed with for so long. So I think that now opening up my audience to corporations and to men's groups, in addition to people that are going through cancer or women that are going through situations, that's really where I'm at now, a turning point of where I think this message can reach and help so many more people than I initially thought.
Awesome. So yeah, if anybody listening or seeing this video, or whatever the case is, if you would like to reach out to Jill, I will be posting all those links and everything available, so you can reach out to her about her speaking. Or obviously, I'll be posting the links to the book, link to the book. I guess the books is the plural, which is coming out next. Maybe that,
Book only one now, but
right?
which is still exciting because now I can finally say I am a published author.
Hey,
And
yeah.
and that is just that's, I think, for anybody, what we were talking about actions earlier, there's a lot of times that I have, had to pump myself up, talk myself into something, feed myself some positive platitudes to push through and get through it. There's nothing wrong with, giving yourself a little, a little bit of positivity push. It's just when it becomes a crutch, you got to recognize the difference.
Yeah, I mean, when you don't basically, in other words, and personally for me anyway, how I look at it as, if you don't accept the reality of the situation,
Yeah.
becomes a problem, like you want to like solve it through just overcome, just thinking that there's nothing negative and it's just you imagining things, then that's an issue. Then you're not accepting the reality. So yeah, no, I got you. Okay, anything you wanted to add there? I see
Oh
one.
no, well, I was gonna say I was at an event. I guess it's probably a year or two ago.
Mhm.
Time does not, we don't see time the same way that we used to post COVID, is my opinion. But I was speaking at an event, and what you just said, I had a gentleman come up to me and
Mhm.
he said, he goes, one of the things you said in your speech about accepting your circumstances, he
Mhm.
said, it just struck me. It just hit me with something. It was like one of those light bulb moments.
Mhm.
And so everything you said, yeah, it is. You've got to be able to accept the circumstances, the good, the bad, and the ugly, which
Mhm.
I know kind of sounds cliche, but sometimes cliches work. So
No, that does. I mean, I personally, I've learned a couple of things there where, everything is happening for me, not to me. That way, yeah, accept the reality. Yeah, this is happening for me because it's teaching me something, like whatever, right? It could be bad, good. I've went through several things, this year itself, many things probably, but it's not that I was thinking, oh, I'm positive. Oh, yeah, yeah. No, no, no. I was seeing what is there to being taught, and that's what helped me, right? I wasn't trying to fake it, think, oh, it'll all turn out well. No, no, no. What is it teaching me? There's something being taught, this bad thing, whatever happened, it's teaching me something. What do I need to learn? What do I need to understand? Accept whatever I'm feeling. So that's a great way. I mean, anyway, not to belabor that point, But I completely agree with you. That's a great point to make in that, not accepting reality, that's one of the biggest issues. All right, let's get into your artist a little bit,
Cool.
right? What do you do there? And I guess kind of go into a little bit like who is the target audience, and mostly is it just art shows you do, or is there commissioned work you do, all that stuff?
Absolutely. Well, I will tell you, I'm an abstract pop artist. And
Okay.
usually when I tell people that, I can see the wheels in their brain trying to figure out what that means.
Uh,
And like I said, I mentioned earlier, I was a graphic designer for decades.
mm,
And when I started painting again, I had this idea of taking logos and icons from pop culture and integrating them in paintings that it was like a subconscious form of rebellion
mm,
because of all the years that I had to create within the constraints of somebody else's idea.
mm,
And, I was told for so long, oh, it's just a logo, hurry up and get it done.
mm,
And I have another collection. So I have a broken series collection and I have this logos as art collection.
mm,
And those spotlight, a logo from, our society that very recognizable. And it just demonstrates the impact that advertising has had on us.
mm,
But my point is, you got to remember that everything is art.
mm,
Everything is derived from a creative mind. And I think sometimes we forget about that.
mm,
And so that is one thing I love about being a pop artist
mm,
is, I'm not a representational landscape painter. There is nothing wrong with that. But I reference a lot of pop culture in my talks,
mm,
and because I think it gives you a way to have perspective without even having any skin in the game. And so my art sort of is in that same vein. As far as the audience, I believe, it
mm,
takes a special person
mm,
to want a piece of my art. I have collectors that, they have, you've got to be able to want that piece in your home or in your office that people are going to walk by every time they come and see it, and they're going to want to stare at it for a couple minutes. Because there's always, something new in those broken pieces. Every time you look at it, you're going to see something new.
mm,
So it's in their statement pieces.
mm,
So I think that everybody should have pop art in their homes and offices. But yeah, I think it is. I think a lot of people resonate with it.
mm,
It's supposed to, evoke a feeling of nostalgia.
mm.
And that's why I create it, because it's my memories and my vision on a canvas.
Awesome. Again, I'll be, hopefully Jill will send me the info, but maybe that artwork, whether it's website, Instagram, or something, you'll be able to see, check it out, and see if that's something you want to buy from her or commission her to do something. I don't know. I don't know if you do commission work, by the way. I didn't ask.
I do. And it's funny. Some artists are very commission forward and some just don't want to do it at all.
Right.
And because a lot of my art comes from, I'm triggered from, I'll be watching TV and a commercial will come on, especially now social media, some memory that I've forgotten all about, either from me or from my son, or I'm driving down the road, I see a sign that makes me think of something. That is where my artwork comes from. I'm triggered by something. I'm like, ooh, cereal. And I want to make a piece of all the cereals I ate when I was a kid.
Mhm.
So commission work for me is so much fun
Mm,
because I'll have somebody come to me, and I had a collector, she had bought a piece from me
mm,
and then she wanted a companion piece to it.
mm,
And she had an idea of what she wanted that to be, which was 1980s news, kind of the dark side of the 80s. And she'd bought a piece that was very MTV Rubik's Cube type stuff.
mm,
And I was like, oh, that's such a great idea. And I was really able to run with that. So
mm.
it's fun when I have people come to me with ideas because it expands what I can create.
Awesome. Great. All right. With that, last three questions for you. I mean, obviously you mentioned books, right? You read a lot of books, but what's the one book, right? That is your favorite book and people should read, or, it could be personal, professional, whatever wise. What's the one book you would recommend?
Goodness. See, those are always so hard. Is there one book? That's ironic. I'm looking, I'm thinking of all the books in my head,
Mm.
and I don't know if I can, I don't know if I can pick one. There's a book. This is going to be funny. There's a book that for entertainment purposes only. Okay, this is not some profound thing, but it is called Magnificent Vibration, and
Mm.
it's by Rick Springfield. He wrote a novel,
Okay.
and I don't know if you've heard of it, but it is, I just thought it was extremely interesting. It's about God and the end of the world, and this, it's a really good book. And
Mm.
it's interesting, but you got to go along for the ride.
Mm.
So I would say, as far as an entertaining book, there's that one.
Mm.
Um, Peace is the Way, from Deepak Chopra. That was important for me. I received that book, I don't know, a long time ago. And Chicken Soup for the Soul. Because I was just talking about this book the other day,
Mm.
and I had made a comment that there's, how they have all the, have you ever read it?
Mhm. Multiple
The,
times.
okay, and so all the different analogies and stories in there, and the Golden Buddha one, where they had it, and they put the clay on it, and they break it away, and you find, yeah. So there's little stories like that I love. I love books that have little short stories in them,
Mm.
and yeah, I you know,
Yeah, no,
I
no, it's sometimes, I mean, I have now with I don't know, I've now read a couple of hundred books, everything spiritual and all that stuff. I finally did, yeah, figured out my favorite two books, but at first it would have been tough for me to ask.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm like, well, it depends on what kind of book, or this, that,
Yeah, that's why I try to go with the, professional, personal, kind of help type of book. That way you narrow down because people, if you're spiritual, they might say Bible or something, right? If they're truly, or religious, right? I would say not spiritual, religious, right? Um,
yeah.
yeah. So anyway, so
Oh, yeah. But no, but if I'm going to suggest a book, of course, it's going to be my Positivity is Overrated book. But yeah,
that's your
that's
own. Yeah, that's
that's
your
that's my
own.
professional opinion. But no, I mean, I think that there's always an opportunity for you to read something that can change your life. Now,
Yes. Yeah. I'm an yeah, never ending reader. So people follow me on, LinkedIn. They know almost every 2 weeks that I'm showing a book so for them to read. So anyway, so now let's get into the, well, what inspires you to get up and do what you do every day?
well, I used to, and I guess I will still say, my son.
Mhm.
He is grown now, but still probably the inspiration to me and always will be.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's anybody, their children are often their inspiration, but him in particular, because now that he's grown, and I mean, he was an inspiration for me to get up and do things and be a mom, and the greatest, thing I've ever done. But now that he's grown, he continues to be my inspiration for me now to go on this journey for myself, as an adult, and what I want to, what I want my legacy to be, what I want to leave behind. And I think I can say that he continues to be my inspiration for me to do things that I've always wanted to do.
Awesome. Great. Well, last but not the least, not list, but one tip you can share that has helped you that can help others. Something lately, obviously your book positivity been that tip obviously you shared. Something else you can share, I guess.
A tip. Okay, here's my tip. Show up for people.
Mm.
And that is the greatest gift that you can give to anybody, because sometimes you might be the only one that does.
Mhm.
And that if you are invited to a party,
Mhm.
show up, whether it's a half an hour or it's the entire time.
Mhm.
I think that showing up for people is something that is underrated at times. Sometimes it's hard, you've had a long day, or you decide you don't want to go, or you want to do this. And 9 times out of 10, because nothing is absolute, but my opinion in the statistical world of, in the bubble in which I live, I think 9 times out of 10, you're going to be glad you went.
Mm.
And I think that if you're sitting somewhere, and you should be somewhere when you're watching this, if you're watching this, finish it, and then get up and go do whatever it was that you said you were going to do with somebody. That's, going to lunch with friends, going to parties, going to, like things that we did, how we met. So I think that showing up for people is the greatest tip that I can give you, because I just don't think you'll regret it.
Awesome. That's a great tip indeed. That's it also speaks to being a person of your word. When you say you're going to show up, show up. Be there. So
Mhm.
that's a great tip. All right, Jill. Thanks for taking the time. And like I said, I'll be sharing all the information that Jill shares with me on the post or the video clips or whatever, wherever you'll be seeing this. So reach out to her. She got three different things. So something might rhyme with you that works for you. So reach out to her on whatever rhymes with you, or either a speaking or a book or her art, right? Either of
Yes,
those things. So,
absolutely. Well,
awesome.
it's been such a joy, and I'm so glad we got to connect and talk. So thank you again for the opportunity.
Thanks, Jill.